true. We have to understand that if we say we're through, then we are through. And if we say we haven't given up, then it's because we haven't given up on God. And if we haven't given up, it's because God just lifted us up. God just shooken us up. God just blessed us up. God just showed us His spiritual attachment to where now we can see what's reign of His glory. We can see what just came of what now just brought in a new name. We have to understand if we pick a wrong claim, it's because we're not trying to seek and speak God's name. We're not trying to speak God in existence. If we don't speak His name in existence, it's because we're trying to get into resistance. And if we get into resistance, it's because we saw the wrong result, because we are listening to the law of crisis from the law of our mind, giving us the wrong design, giving us the wrong authorization, because now we have broken up with the author of authorization, the author, finisher of our faith, Jesus Christ. Jesus is the one who is the answer, who is going to be able to show us that we can roll out cancer by accepting the great physician. We will understand our position. We will understand our transition. We will understand that He is an unconditional Christ, where we will now seek His advice if we can think twice on these things, so we can understand how to obtain the right address to that thing. We need to find out anything that's trying to separate us. We need to rule out the darkness. We need to rule out the spirit of separation. We need to rule out the spirit of infirmity. We need to rule out the spirit of anxiety. We need to rule out. We need to rule out these spirits of fear and all these spirits that are trying to work as agents under Lucifer. We need to stop being ludicrous, and we need to get inside of this gospel so we can understand how to eat of the meal, so we will know what's come of the real deal. But the reason why we don't know what we're working with, because the work doesn't know what it's working with, because when it looks at us, we don't know how to look at it. And the reason we don't know how to look at it is because we don't see God working it. And the reason we don't see God working it is because He's waiting on us He's waiting on us to work it. He's waiting on us to put on the right garments. He's waiting on us to put on the right attire. He's waiting on us to put on the whole armor of God. Put ye on the Lord Jesus Christ, and make not provision for the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof. We need to put on the helmet of salvation so we will know how to get into the right nation, which is God's nation. The heavens will pour up. Once you tap foot into the right address of this kingdom-filled address, you will now see it. Rejoice. You will hear the heavens rejoice. You will hear the angels rejoice. You will hear the angels rejoice each time a sinner repents. You will see what word God sent. You will hear what word God sent. You will understand that there is a kingdom-filled address that now just saw the message itself. It's been transparent to where now you can see what just got inside of that heavenly intervention, to where now you just saw that invention. You just saw the invention. You just must and truly must come to know God so He can come to know you more. Because if we are continuing to push God out the door, it's because we want to hear from ourselves and we don't want to hear from God. The reason we don't know how to hear from God is because we keep speaking. And if we keep speaking, we won't know what He's speaking. We need to begin to say, hey, enough of me and more of you, God. Hey, enough of my circumstance, but more of your agenda, God. Hey, enough of what I saw, but more of what I didn't see. Because if you focus on the things that aren't, you will now see the things that are. If you see not, you will see. We must do what God is performing us to do, but how can we perform if we're misinformed? And the reason we're misinformed is because we are putting on the wrong uniform. We are putting on the wrong uniform, which makes us not being able to unify and be united with Christ. This is what makes us accept the spirit of separation, because we are listening to the spirits from the spiritual. We're listening from the second heaven in on something that's telling us we're already at ends with our end. And this is why we don't ascend to where God wants us to end up in. Because we are listening to the devil, and we are listening to to his rulers and his followers. And this is why we don't know how to be a follower of Christ, because we result in being a follower of Christ, because we act on what we hear before we just listen. If we see, faith comes by hearing. If we don't just listen, then it's because we already are content and we want to still stay hiding dormant inside that tent and say, God, I don't care what God sent because I'm still in my tent. That's what we tell God. God wants to send a message. God wants to send the receiver to help us understand what that receipt consists of. But we want to tell God, no, I see what I consist of. So God, I don't want to see anything else what you consist of. And this is why we don't get blessings. This is why we don't get God's anointing. This is why we don't get the miracle, because we want to push the miracle out and give God crumbs instead of giving God loaves, because we don't want to make a right deposit. What we find, we want to keep. But God wants us to give what we find so he can multiply it. Be ye fruitful and multiply. Be ye fruitful and multiply. We must come to realization that if we don't understand how to put on the whole armor of God, then it's because we've been paralyzed by the wrong spirit. We've been penalized by the wrong spirit because we have interpreted something that wasn't appreciated upon what could have been prevented. If we would understand what God invented upon the prevention, we would have known how to get away from this act of darkness, get away from this unfruitful work. Satan has his lawyers, Christ has his. Satan has his doctors, but Christ still has his. Satan has his agents, Christ has his. Satan has his teachers, Christ still exposes. Christ still exposes what he wants to continue to have, because he wants to have what we don't have. He wants to have, and he wants to expose what we don't have so we can understand how to attain to have. Enoch. This is what I'm going to talk to you about. I'm going to talk to y'all about faith and how it went hand in hand with Enoch. Enoch, the 7th generation Enoch. Enoch lived before the flood. Enoch was blessed by a miracle for not tasting or seeing death by God. Enoch's soul went up. His soul and his spirit went up with the Lord while he was alive. So he never really tasted death because he wasn't asleep before seeing God. He was alive the whole time. Enoch was translated 669 years before the flood. Then his life ended. Enoch lived for 365 years. And let's go now to the scripture. I want to start in Genesis. Chapter 5, and we're going to hit it off with, let's start actually in verse 22, and we're going to go down to verse 24, and the Bible reads, and Enoch walked with God after he begat Methuselah 300 years, and begot sons and daughters. Verse 23, and all the days of Enoch were 365 years. Verse 24, and Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Go to Hebrews. Then I'll build up on there. I'll build up from Hebrews. We're going to start in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 5 to 6. And the Bible reads, by faith Enoch was translated. By faith, Enoch was translated that he should not see death, and was not found, because God had translated him. For before his translation, he had this testimony, that he pleased God. See, if we're not on a mission to please God, then it's a mission that doesn't know what it's after, because if a mission isn't after a mission, then that turns into a mission impossible. That turns into not a mission. And this is what we are doing. when we believe we're on a mission, much of the time we're not on a mission, at least not for God. God's the God of, I'm over here. And oftentimes we're over here. And when God is presently there, we're not there because we aren't speaking our life to be present with the Lord. We're not speaking the right thing because we haven't obtained first the right address to get and move forward to see where God is. And the reason we don't know where God is because we don't know where we're at. And the reason we don't know where we're at because we don't know how to be developed in that particular area or that particular region or that particular location. We don't know how to jump from point A to point B the same way point A and point B doesn't know how to jump through to us. We don't know how to jump from point A to point B because we're not sure what's going to come out to be, and we question things before we get there. We question things. We question God's authority. We question who He is, where He is, why He wrote this word, all these pointless genealogies, and it prevents us from being able to set aside the weight from off of us so we can see what God can put on us as far as spiritual growth for the movement that can stimulate a package of present help. Okay, verse 6, but without faith it is impossible to please Him. For he that cometh to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him. If we're not seeking Him, then it's because we're seeking after our own lust. And if we're seeking after our own lust, it's because we say, God, we don't want to listen to You because we want to obey our own man-made doctrine made with hands. And if we don't see God working in our hands, we completely go off the other direction into our own hands. And this is why we have a hard time making the right decisions. We have a hard time making the right quotas come through from the decision because the decision from the beginning was unstable. And this is why the quotas from the decision don't flourish and don't move into righteousness from its instruction because it wasn't instructed the right thing from the right method, from the right techniques, from the right strategies. See, when we don't have the right tools, we don't have the right guide, there ain't gonna be no line guiding that guy. You can forget about guidelines because if you've accepted the wrong guide, then you already accepted the wrong line. So it's like if you're trying to get a call on that line, it's going to go ahead and cancel itself out. In other words, it's going to go ahead and just freeze up on you. The phone call isn't going to go through because you don't know how to get through to God because you want to only answer to yourself. And when you answer to yourself, you have self-righteousness. For they being ignorant of God's righteousness and going about the establishment of righteousness have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of God. This is why people begin to be man-pleasers. This is why people begin to downgrade and pick their own form of Jesus because they don't want to know Jesus, because they know how hard it is. They know how hard it is to be able to mount to what He says is from this word. And they want to begin to be born into their own interpretation instead of wanting to seek God's nation. They want to seek their own made-up form because they want to accept to be misinformed and they don't want to accept heaven's form of how to properly serve the Lord our God. Enoch had to have faith to walk with God. If you don't have faith to walk, then you're not going to be able to have faith to even know how to talk. Your words are going to be carnal, for we are carnal by nature. But if we are able to study this word so the word can know how to look at us, then God will know how to book upon request as long as He sees we're trying to give it our best in hope of passing the test. Go over to Jude. Turn your Bibles to Jude, verses 14 to 15. And the Bible reads, and Enoch also, the seventh from Adam, prophesied of these, saying, behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of His saints. So Jude right now, he is talking about what Enoch preached about. Yeah, Enoch preached. Enoch was a prophet. That's what prophets do. If they don't do what they're made and set out and called to do, then the do isn't going to know how to perform the do of the work through them. Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of his saints, verse 15, to execute judgment upon all, and to convince all that are ungodly among them of all their ungodly deeds, which they have ungodly committed, and of all their hard speeches, which ungodly sinners have spoken against them. And to convince all that are ungodly among them of all the ungodly. See, we're going to continue to commit ungodly deeds if we don't know how to fill our hands with God's needs, then we're not going to know how to proceed. We must be convinced, but in order to be convinced, sometimes we need to be followed by a leader that God can send so we can understand how to ascend into the right measure of faith, so we can ascend into the right protocol. So when we hear about heaven's call, we won't just hear heaven's call. We will smell it, we will taste it, and eventually we will eat it. And once we eat it, we will begin to find that there is something that is going to excel us into the next top-notch level, to where we can see now what just aligned itself, because now we begin to know ourselves from trusting in what God has done, which they have ungodly committed, and of all their hard speeches which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. Jude tells us Enoch is the 7th generation from Adam when we go up to verse 14. 7th generation Enoch was known by God, not man. So he was well known as God, one of his favorites, and Enoch didn't compromise into ungodliness. He didn't compromise into that. If he compromised in ungodliness, don't you think it would have said it in this Bible? Don't you think it would have already revealed itself through this word? What I've read from the book of Jude, from the book of Hebrews, from the book of Genesis, all what it needs to say about Enoch. God testified to Enoch by showing up with his presence. See, Enoch was right there inside the present that God had made. Enoch wanted to stay inside there because he knew God was all inside there. See, if God was outside the present, Enoch would not want to be in the present. You get that twist to it? See, if we are trying to look for help from God, why are we painting ourselves into a box? We need to make sure we are able to be where he is, so we will know who he says he is and why he says he is, so we will begin to speak this word from what he is calling us to do. Enoch lost his life for God's sake so he can save it for eternity. Let's go to Matthew chapter 16. Hit it off with verse 25. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. That's words from Jesus out of Matthew. God was happy to be able to testify to Enoch. See, God testifies as well. When God testifies, there's no such thing as a lie, because God is never a lie. We make him out to be a lie because we want to throw in our lust upon the content that we have hidden, that we hope God doesn't see. But see, he still sees when we don't see, because he made us. God made us. God knew we were going to do this today. He knew we were going to do this yesterday. God is the same yesterday, the same today, and the same tomorrow. God is expecting us to know what he expects out of us. He's expecting us to know what he expects out of us because he's given us a word. We have to make sure that we know we must think according to what God's purpose has reinstated for us, so we can understand how to move within the right state of where God wants to bring us to. God wants to bring us into a state while we begin to be late because we want to show up at our own convenience. We want to still do those things that are convenient to us that aren't convenient to God. In order to prove all things, we must understand how the things can work within the content that's buried deep down inside of us. We must understand that there are things that must get connected, so we will understand how to form the right transition that can tie in with this position, as long as we're able to plug in the right source, plug in the right things that can justify our point, so we can understand how to run across the point, so we can understand how to connect the dots, so we can understand how to move across the constructed bridge that God has designed. But the reason why we fall from out of his design, we fall from off the bridge into the water, is because Satan's agents have made us fumble. Satan's agents have put us into entanglement of bondage. Satan has his lawyers, Christ has his. Satan has his doctors, but Christ still has his. Satan has his agents, Christ has his. Satan has his teachers, Christ still exposes. Christ still exposes what he wants to continue to have, because he wants to have what we don't have. He wants to have, and he wants to expose what we don't have, so we can understand how to attain to have. We must understand how to gain a new name, but the only way we'll gain a new name if we accept heaven's claims, so we will have the name and the faith that can go with the name.